What's up, what's good, how's it going? I'm S3, and for today's video we're going to be doing a VRoid tutorial on distressed jeans. I'm going to be outlining two different methods of doing this, one within the VRoid studio, and another using another art program to import textures. So to start off, we're going to be using the Fem model, and I'm going to be changing the color to be a little bit darker so that it's a little bit easier to be able to see the tears that we're going to be doing. Now, first step is going to be going to Outfit, then Bottoms, then Custom, Create New, and we're going to be selecting the pants with no pleats. Since we're going to be doing jeans, we're not going to need to iron the edge, and by using the custom texture, we'll be able to do the full texture that we want to do. Now that we're loaded in, we're going to be establishing the base color first. Since we're going with denim, we're going to be using a slightly darker desaturated blue and maximum brush width, and we're just going to be covering the entirety of the layer. Next thing to do is using the airbrush. We're going to be using also the maximum width, but we're going to be turning down the opacity right about halfway. And we're going to go with a darker, more desaturated color and going straight through the middle to add some depth. We're going to turn on the mirror tool and go along the sides as well. So now when we look at our model, it has a darker area in the middle, darker area in the middle, and it looks a little bit more 3D. Now go for also desaturated but lighter color and go straight down the sides of the legs. That establishes our baseline. Now turn up your opacity all the way up. We're going to go back into a normal brush and we're going to start making the holes. We're obviously going to use the eraser tool, turn down our brush width to around 10-ish, and once we start getting in, if you haven't used VRoid before, you can see all these grid lines. This is the mesh which the texture is wrapped around the model with, and if you see all the squares, they're bigger around the top and get smaller and more clumped together around this general area. This area right here is our knee. So if I go with a different color, I can demonstrate this to you. Oop, doesn't really matter the color because I'm still on the eraser, but you can see that it's in this general area of the knees. So I'm gonna undo. We're gonna turn off the mirror tool. I think I'm gonna go a little bit lighter, around 6 with the brush, and instead of just hastily drawing our holes, we're going to be stroking along these edges, and there's no real rhyme or reason to how these go. Generally it's just in the front of the leg and around the knee area. And now to pan over, we're going to hold down the shift key and then just click and drag to the other side. With the holes in whatever position you want, now what we're going to do is go back to our layer, right click, and toggle alpha lock. What that allows us to do is draw as much as we want on the layer without covering up our holes. See, as I'm drawing over it, it's not going back over the holes. We're going to use our eyedropper, go to some area close to there, and what we're going to do is a lighter color, and when we zoom in, just like how we drew the holes themselves, we're going to be doing some light strokes in the same direction as the scars themselves, or the tears themselves. Now this color is a little bit too dark, I'm going to go lighter even. And if you see on the model itself, you can see that discoloration is starting to come in. This is specifically for denim, but any fabric as it starts to tear, you can see the colors start to stretch out and fade. And so, with denim being a darker blue color, we're going to go to a lighter color. But any color that you end up making, the material, you should just use a more desaturated but a lot lighter color around these edges. And with these smaller tears, you're not going to want to make the lines too big, the lighter color. You're going to want it to stay closer to the original tear itself. To make it a little bit more detailed, what you can do is go back over with an almost whitish color and just doing a few lines here and there. Now lastly, we're going to go back over with the color that is closest and just roughen up these edges a little bit more. And with that, we have our look basically completed. As you can see, we have our distressed look. We have the tears, and from a distance it looks pretty good. It looks like jeans, For the second method, we're going to be using an art program to draw our design and then transferring it over to VRoid. In this case, I'm going to be using a program called Medibang, and it's a pretty good program in general for doing digital art. And what we're going to do is start off with a pattern. I started with this 11 by 11 picture. You can do different sizes, it doesn't really matter exactly. It should be something small. And we're going to be using the dot tool. And what this allows us to do is for us to be able to make something very small, to be like as much detail as we can, and then repeat it multiple times over so we can get that more natural denim look. And so what I like to do is start out with a darker color using our dot tool, and we're going to make like a zigzag kind of pattern in the end. So something like this. And if you happen to have some jeans close to you, it'll be the perfect time to test this. And you can look at it and see exactly what kind of tones you're going to be using. Now I'm going to go back over, and if you ever noticed, when you look straight up against jeans, it's almost like this kind of zigzag patterns, but with different colors, different shades of blue. Now, once we're done, we should get something like this. If you start zooming out, it starts to look more and more like the denim that we have on real pants. So from there, we're going to go over to this little message box right here, which is the material dialog. We're going to be adding material from canvas and making our pattern right there. Now, when we open a new file and we go back over to this material dialog and use our pattern, we get something that looks a little bit more like denim. So you can see it almost looks like a denim pattern. And just like how we did the pants earlier, I'm going to be going over with an airbrush, and I'm going to be using the grid line, the crisscross snap, to make it go straight. This isn't close enough. Oh, also you should make a new layer. We're going to make a substantial size airbrush. I'm doing roughly 270. Go back over to layer, move, line center. We're going to be going along the edges as well. We're going to go with a lighter color. Go along the middle And now if we turn down the opacity of this layer, it'll start to fade into a more natural looking denim. Now we can even export this as it is. And now when we go back to our model, you can click on this little square right here to import an image. I've done a couple of examples right here for different colors of denim. I'm going to be going with this one right here. And as you can see, it already looks a lot more like denim than our first example. So if you want to do just plain jeans, this is a great way of doing it. And it's also very suggested that you can save this texture for later. If you go over here to this bottom one, you can export guide, and this will give you the mesh that the pants follow. And when we go back to Medibang, you can open the image as layer and use our guide right here. Move the guide layer straight to the middle. That way we have it perfectly centered and we can see where we're going exactly. Now to start off with the tears, we're going to be merging these two layers together, and we're going to be erasing just like how we started with the other one on this. Now similar to how we did the tears in VRoid, over here we're going to be clicking Protect Alpha, and that's going to allow us to not be able to erase anymore and also not be able to draw on top of the holes. Now again, we're going to be going with a lighter color. Going to be using a pen and going along these edges. One thing we can do to make it a little bit more natural is making tears that aren't all the way through. So we're going to use our eyedropper, go back just like the color that we used for the highlighting, and let's see, say about right here, we're just going to do strokes of color. Now I feel like that's pretty well established, so we're going to export this. Actually, before we do that, let's readjust this sizing. So if we go to canvas size, now that's just about the right size that we need. Export it. When you're in Medibang, this top layer highlighted as a draft layer. This allows us to be able to see it while we're working, but when we export, it'll go away. If the program that you're using doesn't allow that, then just turn off the layer and then export like that. Going back into VRoid, now we can go and input it. We're going to have to hide the other layers, or you can just delete them. And now we have our more accurate distressed jeans. Now if you didn't want to do the tears or don't feel comfortable doing the tears in another program, you can also just import the plain denim and then making the tears onto here. Doing it in a drawing program will give you a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more options, but this is still a viable way of doing it if you feel more comfortable doing so and not knowing how to follow the mapping. There we go. And there you have it, distressed jeans. And edit it as you'd like. But in general, we have our basic pattern. This is going to conclude the video for today. Through this video, you hopefully have learned how to make distressed jeans, and while this is specific to jeans, the patterns that you learned today should be able to be applied to different types of materials such as sweaters, t-shirts, or whatever you would like. You're generally going to follow the same rules, making your holes first, highlighting the edges with a lighter shade of the general color or pattern, and going from there. Using alpha lock to preserve the shape of the tears, and being able to follow the lines parallel to the holes. Well, I hope you enjoyed that lesson today. If you have any more questions, please leave them down in the comments below. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Tune in next time.